Things you never hear from F1 fans, number 64.
Who won? Vettel? Wow! Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. We are Q8 for the first time since Le Mans. Welcome to Richard Porter.
Hello.
Zog.
Hello.
And I'm Gareth. What's more boring, Formula One or the fact that Final Cut Pro X is rubbish?
I've been ranting enough about Final Cut for the last week, so let's talk about F1 instead.
Cool.
Yes.
I think it's called Final Cut 10, isn't it? I can't call it X, it's bad.
No, I'm afraid I don't use Final Cut. I've never used Final Cut. I don't really understand how it works, but I would find it more interesting than the race in Valencia.
Yes, horribly
which
done.
I raced back from a delightful weekend in the country for, and then sort of regretted that I had. You remember how beautiful it was that day, that Sunday, when the Valencia race was on?
Lovely.
Yeah, I raced back. We both arrived in just at the start of the race. I'd been up in Essex somewhere, researching a song probably, and we both fought our way through traffic, and we got, oh, great, exciting, here it goes, and it went off with a splut, didn't it? Now, what are the chances of that happening, and why did that happen in a season where we've got rubber, which is supposed to give us entertainment from the moment that they even turn up at the circuit, and DRS? Is it that blooming circuit, or is it a tyre compound?
I'm going to say that it's that circuit.
Yeah, in a word,
it
Valencia.
just is.
Yeah.
Because we've seen at pretty much every other circuit this season some extraordinarily good racing. And we can say that the tyres and the DRS working well to create that good racing. So, what went wrong at Valencia? It's just the fact it's a boring circuit. And isn't it brilliant then that Bernard Eccleston immediately is quoted as saying, oh, I hope we'll be coming back to Valencia for many years, or words to that effect. And you sort of feel like he's almost sometimes just trying to be spitefully annoying to all F1 fans, just so that we can talk about him, as we are now. I think he enjoys it.
He does a very good job of whipping up publicity, doesn't he? But yeah, but I don't know, Valencia, he's got the wrong kind of corners, hasn't it? It just doesn't have the right...
It's got a bridge. It's, hang on, listen.
What is that noise?
It's a kettle. Hang on. That's our new kettle. We've got this kettle.
That kettle's
Turbo
really
kettle.
groovy. You should put a picture of the kettle on the website.
Okay, that'll be the picture for this show, the kettle, which is 2 rooms away, but you can hear it. That's unusual.
Yeah.
But if you could see it, you would appreciate why it's a kettle of wonders. Anyway, back to
Bernie Eccleston.
Bernie Eccleston and Valencia.
Bernie Eccleston, for me, is more like Johnny Rotten in that he says stuff to be acerbic, but just to wind people up, than anyone else I know. He's completely his own man. He says what he wants. It's
Oh,
rock
I know.
and
We've
roll.
said this on the show before. Well, I've said this on the show before, I know, because it was probably only about 2 shows ago, that if we didn't have Bernie, we'd miss him. And when he does finally go and Formula One is bought by a conglomerate that involves Ferrari, or whatever will happen, we'll be going, oh, why haven't we got a pantomime villain in charge anymore?
When we generally complain about drivers not being colourful enough, not being quotable enough, things just getting a little bit too colourless and drab, for all the idiocy of some of the things that Eccleston says, and he certainly said some incredibly stupid things last year, but yeah, you'd miss him if he wasn't there.
Can I say this? I miss Flav. I miss Max. Jean Todt has brought very little to the table, really, for us to poke fun at the moment. He's very low profile.
You can poke fun at his rather vague grasp of voting rules. That's he's supposed to be in charge.
Was it unanimous?
I don't know.
I don't know. Let's ask Sepp Blatter from the FA. Oh, wait, no. That brings me on. I was going to bring this up anyway, since we're talking about the FIA. The new engine rules, which have sort of been ratified pretty much, but maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, I thought they had.
Everyone's got...
From 2014...
Oh wait, is it, I thought
V6.
it's 2016 now, or is it not? Am I thinking of a V16 engine?
No, it's 2014, but they will rev up to
V6.
16 revs, as opposed to the 12 that was initially suggested. This is classic. It's the legacy of Max. This is how Max Mosley used to do these negotiations. He'd say, next year you will only have £15 to spend on your car. And they go, we can't do it for less than 10 million. And they agree for 9 million, you know, and that's all he wanted to do. And it's the same game again. It's you want, you'll settle for, you get. It's like that scene where, was it Life of Brian? 40 for that, you must be joking.
I think Max mistakenly believed that he wasn't at a series of Formula One races. He was actually in a Tunisian bazaar trying to buy a small statue of a camel, just going in uber low on every price, knowing full well that it would then get bartered up significantly.
For instance, if you were going to buy a Talbot Matra Simca Rancho.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
That's definitely too big a subject to get.
No, it's not.
If it's advertised for 1,700, you go in there and say, I'll give you 4.
I'm loath to mention this because basically Johnny Smith, Fifth Gear presenter and friend of Gareth Jones on Speed, sent me a text this morning that started with, "You're the only one I can trust on this, Rich," which is an interesting start to a text. And I thought momentarily,
you know it's going to get you into trouble, don't you?
John's not the kind of guy who'd have murdered someone, so I'm assuming it's car related.
Anyway, you learned last time.
And he'd found a Matra Rancho for sale on eBay, and he wondered if I wanted to go halves on it. And,
halves, what, the good part or the rusty half?
Well, yeah, because the back half is fiberglass and probably won't rust so much.
Have that.
Zog has a very dim view of Matra Ranchos.
I do.
Come on, we've discussed.
I love a Matra Rancho, but do I actually want to own one?
Exactly.
I think the question is, well, what would I do with it? And the answer is, I would park it at Johnny Smith's house. He would use it. And his argument is that it's only going to go up in value. But essentially what I'm being asked is, do I want to give Johnny Smith £850 so he can buy a Matra Rancho that I can occasionally go and look at?
Look at it rusting lightly outside his place. Yeah.
Only parts of it.
Only parts of it will be rusting.
Now, what would you do with a Matra Rancho? You'd have to adopt a late 70s French lifestyle, wouldn't you? It's for people who have a lifestyle.
I don't know. I'm never sure whether they sold well in France. They certainly didn't sell well here. My dad was about to buy a Talbot Solara in about 1981, and there's a precocious 5-year-old me. One
of the few cars named after a lolly ice.
Yes, though there is also, if you remember, the Ford Raspberry Mivy.
And Fab One. Hey!
So yeah, my dad was looking at Talbots in the early 80s, and I desperately tried to persuade him that he should buy a Matra Rancho, and he very sagely said, "Don't be silly. It looks four-wheel drive, but it's not. It's just a silly pseudo-con car, and I'll just get a Solara." And he did. He did have a point, but in a weird way, the Matra Rancho was very ahead of its time. The amazing thing is, if I bought a Matra Rancho, I'd have to take it up to show it to my dad, and it would just be a bizarre kind of thing where my dad would probably go, "Oh, mate, oh dear, perhaps I was too hard on the Matra Rancho, and it's had such an effect on him, and now he's gone and spent £850 to go splits with that bloke off Fifth Gear for one." Probably one of about 2 or 3 left in Britain, I think. In fact, I looked this up on that How Many Left website, and I think it genuinely is. It's single figures, I think, of ones on the road, and there's a few more sawn. But anyway, how have we got from the Valencia Grand Prix to this?
Yeah, come on.
That is the beauty of this programme. People say you've got to have a plan. No, you don't.
Well. So, Lewis, the 2011 season so far, is it going to plan?
Plan?
Things you never hear from F1 fans, number 82.
Oh, I wish they were ditching the V8s for 4 cylinders still.
Things you never hear from F1 fans, number 236.
I wish there were more races like Valencia.
Yes, Central! With Gareth Jones on Speed!
I tweeted a bit of news which the first person I saw talking about it was Tim Pollard from Car, who said, "Oh, Porsche, going back to Le Mans." And so I looked around and there was no news on the internet about it. I thought, great, I better get this out. And I tweeted it with Zog's Twitter ID in there saying, when Zog hears about this, he's going to go supernova. And Zog, speaking from Richard's side of the microphone for a moment...
I haven't actually turned into a giant collapsing and then exploding star, but I'm pretty excited.
I did that, darling. Porsche going back to Le Mans, suggesting, because the video that they've done to advertise this is kind of 917s, is that right? Showing the glory days?
Yeah, I haven't actually had a chance to look at any video today, so I haven't seen that video. But yeah, obviously, the 917 and 956 have been the foundation of an extraordinary record that Porsche has had at Le Mans over the years. Recently, Audi has been dominant, and clearly Audi will be out of the way by the time Porsche comes in. I can't imagine that, given the links between the companies, that Audi is still going to be there when Porsche introduces their prototype. And Audi, I'm sure, feel that they'll have achieved a period of remarkable dominance that's historic. In a sense, they could only, they can only go downhill from here.
It's called Schumacher syndrome, isn't it?
So ideally, Audi should call it quits after winning another couple of Le Mans and then give it a few years and then come back again. But the car would be a bit out of shape and
will be beaten by a younger team.
Exactly.
Rebellion.
It's interesting to see what happens on the powertrain side of things, because at the moment diesels and petrols are not quite equally treated by the rules, some people would say. There seems to be a consensus among the teams that maybe the diesels are slightly favoured by the rules, even with the evening up that the ACO has been doing. And, I'm sure they're trying to get it right, but it seems to be a difficult equivalent to get right.
I love the way they tweak those sort of things. Oh, no, we have to make the fuel filler slightly narrower. Oh, no, the air restrictor slightly... It's very subtle, very simple little changes.
Well, sometimes you only need a little bit of difference on a lap time, to even things up over a race.
Speaking of Porsche, as we were, sorry, I just remembered something. I've just been reading up today. There's some details are starting to trickle out about the all-new 911 that is coming very, very shortly.
Do we know what the model number is of this?
Yeah, 991. They're going backwards.
Why is it
because 997 they could only go to 998.
They've been running out of.
I see.
And I don't know why they didn't, except there was this weird rumour doing the rounds that the 911 was going to get a V8 engine.
No.
Well, this seems to have come from the fact that supposedly they had a development car at the factory to shake down the Panamera V8, which they'd wedged it into the back of a 911. I imagine it might have done some horrid things to the handling, but maybe not. It's maybe not a very heavy
It made
engine.
it handle like an older 911.
Yes, exactly. Oh, it just takes me back. I almost died.
A rear-engine V8? When was the last time we had one of those?
Tatra, probably.
Yeah. Oh, were they flat sixes? But no, they were V8.
There's V8s back there sometimes. They're cooled, though.
Yeah, well.
Very Porsche-like.
Heritage.
Because that's where they stole a lot of the ideas from in the first...
No, we did not steal. We just had the same idea from a cross-border.
Yes, of coincidence. And so...
Look, there's Taki Inui, knock him down! I had to do
That's
that.
what Tatra's most known for, in our minds at least.
Yeah.
Taki Inui is on Twitter, by the way.
Oh, is he?
He is too. I just keep mentioning Twitter in this show, but why not?
You must be following.
Do you know I'm not, because I can't bring myself to believe it's really him. I'm sort of biding my time, because I don't want to have my heart broken to find that it's not a hapless buffoon, and that one of his tweets won't be, "Oh, I like it here in Hungary." Ah!
So tell us about the new 911.
Well, all I know so far
What are
is...
the rumours?
I wish you could see... Hang on, whoa, stop. I wish you could see Zog wringing his hands at the moment. It's a shame this is an audio show. Zog's head is about 30 degrees to one side. He's wringing his hands going, tell me, Richard, tell me.
A bit itchy. Just scratching.
All right, so the headlines that I have, it is pretty much all new. So it's only the third time that the 911 has truly been all new. A lot of aluminium in it, longer wheelbase. Engines are the same engines, except that they've all been tweaked up against the direct injection ones they brought back in. They've reduced the size of the Carrera engine from 3.6 down to 3.4, but the S keeps the 3.8. And that's about it. I mean, it still looks like a 911 from what I can tell. I haven't seen official pictures yet, but they have released some pictures of some taped-up prototypes.
I saw
They're
one.
not going to change their look too radically, are they?
No, of course not. So they've obviously worked quite hard to keep the proportions the same, even though they've made it longer and bigger. And the interior is a bit sort of Panamera-ish, same sort of switches and things like that. It looks a bit busy, a lot of buttons on it. The weirdest thing for me is that there'll be the double-clutch PDK gearbox that you can get on the 911 now.
40 points. Who can say what PDK stands for? Can anyone do it here?
Porsche
No. It's Porsche.
Yeah.
So you say.
Bing. And so that is a 7-speed double clutch gearbox. However,
It's all right, I heard you the first time.
because it's double clutch, it's
That's all right,
actually
I
a
heard you the
manual
first time.
box. Because it's double clutch, it's a manual gearbox. It's just the mechanism, the robotised double clutch thing. So the actual box is a manual. Now, they're saying they could do an actual manual using the same 7-speed gearbox. A 7-speed normal gate change with a clutch on it.
You'd never find the right gear,
Exactly,
ever, would
it would
you?
be a-
First, seventh, second.
No, it'd be an
They
absolute
say they
frigging
can
nightmare.
do it. They didn't say they will do it, though, did they?
It's a bit hazy at the moment, but the implication is they are going to do it because they're dropping the old 6-speeder, and in turn, the old 6-speeder is the only gearbox that connects up to the racing engine, the one that's in the GT3 RS 4 litre that's just come out, and all of the GT3s and GT2s. And, sorry, GT2 RS just come out, hasn't it? Anyway, there's loads of these things, I get confused. But the racing engine in road cars has come to the end of its life. It will not go into the new car because one of the reasons being there isn't a suitable gearbox. So it implies this 7-speed manual is going to happen, which is weird.
Well, okay, well, two thoughts. What about a sequential shift? Or secondly, is there an equivalent to the H pattern that you could come up with that makes any sense for a 7-speed
It's going to look
box?
like a
Pretty
mad
hard to imagine.
octopus on the diagram.
No, I was thinking, some kind of
Almost.
sort of starfish thing on you.
It will
I don't
have
know,
8
but-
branches, won't it? Because just have
Clock
reverse.
face.
So.
Like
Yeah.
a clock face at first, then you go to number 2 for
That's it.
second, third, fourth, fifth, and then you can go from 9th to 3rd then.
I mean, there wouldn't be a single sensible change. There wouldn't be the equivalent of shifting from first to second straight across, or...
Actually, I quite like the clock
interesting.
face idea. I may have hit on something there. It would have to have at least 6 would be good, or 4. Oh, hang on, we're going backwards now.
No, I know. It's better if you have an odd number rather than even. If you're going to go with this radiating thing, it's better to have an odd number, because if you've got an even number, you could go straight across the box and you'd kind of go from first to fourth, whereas you want to go from first into the middle and then shift into second. See what I mean? You
Yeah.
No, it's just, this is all too complicated.
Spirograph!
Oh, man alive. Anyway, there you go. The new 911,
we can use
almost
pictures at this point.
undrivable by the sound of it.
Yeah, if we have anything to do with it.
Things you never hear from F1 fans, number 174.
F1's just not the same without Zolt Baumgartner.
Things you never hear from F1 fans, number 98.
Ooh, Hamilton's being extra cautious today.
Things you never hear from F1 fans, number 2.
So, Felipe Massa, is he the number 1 or the number 2 driver?
Gareth Jones on speed.
For the final part of this Gareth Jones on Speed, I thought we'd talk about 2 cars separated by 1,000,000 miles and yet inextricably linked. The first car is the car that you've been driving, all week, Richard? How long have you had this car?
I've had it for 4 days now, so...
It reminds me of what roadies say when you meet a roadie. Oh, how long you been on tour? All day. How long have you had this car?
How many
all
people
week?
work here? About half of them.
Oh, yes.
Other one. So, yeah, for the past 4 days, I've been driving the new Ford Focus, which you're starting to see around now on the roads, which is what piqued my interest.
Yeah.
Because I think from the front, as you see them coming towards you on the road, it is quite a handsome-looking thing. And just this week, they've announced the estate one goes on sale, and I actually saw one at the weekend, which obviously is right up your street, Gareth, isn't it? Because it's a Ford and it's an estate, so it's what's not to like. And I'm not convinced about the back of the hatchback, but I do like the whole of the estate. I think it's really nice looking. The one I've got is the hatch, and it's in this sort of funny acidy green, which I'm not particularly keen on, but... that's about all I'm not particularly keen on, because I think it's really good. It's terrific. I read some road tests of it, and people saying, "Oh, it's a bit more grown up. It's not as fun to drive as the old Focus." And
But that's what they said about the previous generation.
exactly. And then the more that you drove it, the more you appreciated it was still rather good. In fact, I had an old generation Focus as a hire car just the other week, and
Oh, great! You've been able to
it
do the
was-
comparison.
Yeah, in fact, I've had a couple recently, and yeah, they're still really nice cars to drive. And this one is a step on. It is more grown up. It's one of those cars you get in and you go, "Do you know what? If I need to buy a car, family car, probably just get one of these. Why would you need any more? It's a car. It does all the things a car needs to do.
And I have to say,
Stops.
every time
it feels
I've
quite
stepped-
well made.
Yeah, any time in recent years that I've stepped into a new Ford, I've always been impressed. Maybe this comes from having slightly, I don't know, mediocre expectations of the cars in the first place, which is, I think, generally my baseline. Always thought much better of them having tried them out.
There's some truth in that. You know, it's that thing about the most satisfied car owners in the world are Skoda drivers, aren't they? Because they don't expect that much, and it's their own
expectations are
money.
lower. And because also they're still fighting prejudice,
Yeah.
when the JD Power survey comes out, they leap into action and go, my Skoda's brilliant. Listen to my Skoda. Possibly assuming they're the only person in the world who's going to defend Skodas. Now, there are millions of people defending Skodas, and they're always at the top of JD Power. With very happy
With very
owners.
good reason, because
Whereas I
Skodas
think
are
people buy
fantastic.
VWs, which
Always
Skodas
happy.
are based on, and go, if only everything in life was as reliable as a Volkswagen. Oh, hang on a minute, it rattles, and now the diesel injectors have failed. I'm going to express my displeasure. It's TV's Violet Berlin.
Hello, can I butt in to ask a really obvious question which you can cut out if you want?
Yeah,
I need
please
to
do.
know this because I was
Anyway,
lurking in
okay,
the
so I've been...
background.
oh, sorry, cut out in the edit. I thought you meant, like, cut... Right, sorry, go on.
So I was lurking in the background and I just didn't catch what's the difference between what makes a new Ford the great new Ford, because you've been driving them both. Why do they need to bring a new one out, and what's better?
Why
about
do
it?
they need to
Well,
bring a new one
the
out?
why did you
Better.
bring a new
I
car
mean, the old one was
Glad
really
you
good,
asked me.
wasn't
It was really good, but the thing is that one of the things they've done with this new car is load it with stuff, equipment that people now want out of their cars. And it's really hard sometimes to engineer in some fancy new feature into an old model, because there's hundreds of metres of wire in a car, and then you've got to try and weld in. It's not like, you know, just having a
So it's the
burglar alarm put in your house.
electrics,
The electrics
it's
is one
the
reason.
technicals.
Also, safety standards go up. It's very hard to re-engineer the body of a car to be safer, because you can't just let in a heavier bit of metal. That'll ruin everything. And make
There
the car
are rules about the height of bonnets and the
Yeah, there's
angle
all
of
sorts of
bonnets
stuff,
now,
regulations
which
as
weren't
well.
a few years ago.
You want to make the car more efficient. One of the easy ways to do it is to make it lighter and more aerodynamic. It's really hard to get weight out of a car once you've designed it and started making thousands of them. It's really hard to make it more slippery because it's the shape it is.
So you're
And
saying,
particularly to make it lighter without making it less safe. Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. But
so it's just a general upgrade to take all these new rules and materials and sort of design.
Yeah, plus,
Thinking.
there's a very simple, really basic sales reason, is that people like new things and things that look new, and that car design changes very, very subtly, but it does change. The proportions and the detailing of cars change all the time, and they evolve to keep things fresh. You've got to have a fresh-looking car. Ford are brilliant at selling cars because they give the customer fresh-looking things all the time.
And Ford are the grand masters, in my opinion, of the 91 model improvements over the, a
They
fresh
used to do it
facelift.
brilliantly in the 80s and 90s. They just like bung some two-tone paint and some alloy wheels on something and go, oh, look, it's called the LX now. And people would go,
Or the Crusader.
"Oh, we want one of those, though, because it looks a bit nicer than my L.
we
And
didn't
that's-
fall for it.
Yeah, stop me if I'm boring you, but the other reason why they needed to create a new Focus is because this Focus is going to be sold all around the world. One consistent car all around the world, by which they can then get economies of scale, which also then allows them to fit the really high-tech stuff, like radar cruise control. It's got this thing that I haven't got the balls to test, where if you aren't paying attention in traffic and you come up against a traffic queue at low speed, like crawling through London, if you don't brake in time because you're not paying attention, it will brake for you so you don't have a little 5-mile-an-hour accident to the guy in front. I haven't got the guts to try it.
That came out of the Volvo relationship, didn't it?
I think so, yeah. It's all...
But you see, we've had cars that have done that.
Yeah.
But are you sort of saying they're putting these in cars now of the cost
Yeah,
of
sort
a
of,
Ford?
exactly.
Do you
The
remember
only
that?
reason Ford can do it is because they're going to
Technology
sell
filters down.
a million of them all around the world. So the economies of scale mean they can develop this technology and be confident they'll get their money back on it.
Do you remember that Lexus we had, the LS
Yeah.
600H that would park itself, and
Yeah.
how we were all astonished at that? What, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
The Focus does that now.
Yeah.
That Focus. Which engine you got very quickly? It's the last thing on it.
It's a 1.6 turbo, 150 horsepower petrol engine, lovely gear change on it, nice steering. It's got an electric steering rack on it now rather than hydraulic, and yet it feels really normal and nice and
Because
natural, not
Americans
that,
like that.
weird thing. Yeah, the only thing that marks it out as a car that's going to be sold in America, oddly, is that first of all, on the air conditioning, it's got a but no, it's bigger, but it's not stupidly big. You drive around Britain without going, oh god, this car's huge. Unlike the Mondeo now, which has got a bit
It's
too
big, yeah.
Anyway, it's got a button on the air conditioning that just says Max AC on it, and you push that, and everything starts going until you freeze your nose off. And that's because they like that in Florida and California and places in the US where it gets really hot, and also probably in Australia and Thailand and all the other countries where it's hot, and they'll sell this car. And also the air conditioning display on the one I've got has got climate control, and it's ruddy awful. It's like a 70s calculator, like American cars still have.
Yeah.
Americans seem to like that.
Can
Can you
And
still
it's-
Shell oil in it?
if you
on
roll
stand
the
it
car
upside down.
if you could, I've tried to dial the temperature into be 808 8,733,000, and then it sort of rolled the card and it said boobless. So, yeah, that's the only thing that sort of really identifies it. But that's the thing, that people in Texas will be buying pretty much the same car as people in Leicester, as people in Rome and in Sydney, and all over the world they'll be buying this Focus. And fair play to them. If you buy one of those Focuses, you've bought a good car, because it's really, really sound bit of work, that.
I've always admired the Focus. We had a rental Focus estate for a while. It was superb. Listen, it hasn't got a power adjustable steering column, has it? I bet if it did, it was exactly the same as the one in the Jaguar that we've just driven.
Well, that's a Ford electric mirror control, isn't it, in those Jags still? Is it the one with a really knobbly texture on it?
We went, as you know, to Le Mans in the new Jag XJL, the long wheelbase version, which was fab, wasn't it, Zog?
It was a very elegant and swift ride. Perfect car for the trip.
It was, but there were three things that let it down. These are minor criticisms. The column control was a Ford Focus, well, Mondeo, I suppose, really, gnarled knob, exactly the same. And that was the only thing that really tweaked through its Ford heritage, apart from the fact that if you stand far enough back from it, you know, this sort of distance, and you look at the Jag XJL like that, you squint slightly, you go, oh, they're still making the Scorpio as a hatchback. It really has. It's got...
Really?
Come on, that glasswork around the rear horn.
No, because the Scorpio had a lovely sort of wraparound glass thing, and I know they've tried to create that wraparound effect on the Jag, but it doesn't really look like it's wraparound. There's a big ring of chrome around the...
It's close.
No, I mean, it has elegant, understated looks. I was surprised at how much attention it got, to be honest, because it doesn't scream at you with its lines. It's a fairly
understated.
It's a classy act. It's a class act. It's not a. It's not
aggressive at the front.
The big grill,
big grill,
huge grill.
Yeah, Can I just say,
it's TV's Violet Berlin.
Back up Zog here. It was parked outside our house for a couple of days, and I didn't notice it. So this car has been outside the house, and I don't really notice cars that much, but it doesn't stand out in a sort of flashy way.
In France, they loved it though. When we went to the classic British welcome, you know, oh, there's a Bentley, nice to Martin. No, Jaguar. They haven't seen it. It's still quite rare. Didn't it have an air of presidentiality about it? It felt
had a
like
bit of
government.
had a bit. It was bits of Men in Black. It's a bit Secret Service, which we like. Very briefly, a couple of things that I did particularly like about it. On the trip back, I love the entertainment system, the dual view screen, so that while you were looking at the sat-nav, I was watching the Marx Brothers movie that we also had coming over
which
the
I was listening
stereo.
to. It was superb,
That was...
It was a bit like listening at the time, because I was watching this movie and I was looking at the same monitor, seeing my navigation stuff. It was like watching a movie with the audio description for the blind engaged, because I was saying, Harpo is now playing a very funny... And I could hear the soundtrack. It was great.
I think I was explaining how there was the scene coming up was the one in which actually Zeppo actually played Groucho, because Groucho wasn't well. And
was it Zeppo, not Chico, who played it?
It was Zeppo, because
Zeppo,
Zeppo sometimes used to play Groucho's parts in the stage shows, and Groucho used to say that he thought that Zeppo actually did it better than him. Actually, if he could get away with it, he'd have let Zeppo do it all the time.
So it changed the nature of the conversations we could have in the car, because he could watch movies while I was driving. It was amazing.
I find that annoying, because I'd want to see what the film was doing.
Yeah,
but it's still a terrific bit of technology. I think you can get
great.
Headphones, can't you, to override it with
Yes, you can. And I'm glad you mentioned that.
And did you try as well? It's got the Bluetooth streaming for your music.
Yeah, we did all that.
Which is very clever, and I noticed now they...
Although we chose to do it via cable, but we could have streamed it via Bluetooth.
It works all right. I've tried it in the Jag, and I tried it also. I discovered it almost by accident in a Peugeot 508 the other week, and it worked pretty well in there. I will mention that car some other time, mainly because it's got a million buttons all over the dashboard, all of them confusing.
The infotainment on this Jag worked beautifully. We had 2 phones and iPods and stuff all connected very quickly, very easily, simultaneously. So
we didn't look at the manual. We managed to figure it all out, which I like. I always like to be able to figure out the technology without having to look at a manual.
It had more USB sockets in that bit between the 2 front driver's seats than a bloody Alienware gaming PC. Honestly, it was ridiculous. Like a 6-port hub. No, with 2 or 3 in there. But it really did integrate with your entertainment system very well. On the downside, the rear view mirror makes everything look 16 by 9 when it was clearly shot 4 by 3. I kept driving on, looking in the mirror and going, what the hell's that? A Porsche 918? No, it's a 911. It really did flatten everything. There was some real distortion from that rear mirror. I thought it was the rear window for a while, but we eliminated it, that it turned out to be the rear mirror.
So actually one of the most low-tech parts of the car that's been in cars for many years turned out to be not very good.
Yeah,
and yet it can basically beam music from space.
Yeah.
Without a flaw.
What an engine! V6.
Well, and I mean, it's got a bit of get up and go to it, and also the sound. Although from the outside it does have a bit of the diesel rattle going on, from the inside, it sounded beautiful. I was very, very happy with the sound from the other end.
I've forgotten I'm wearing glasses. I'm holding this piece of paper miles away from my face.
What is this piece of paper with tiny writing on it?
Yeah, it's tiny. It's the spec of the XJL, and the reason why I've got to wear glasses and the writing's so tiny is the spec is huge. They've crammed it all onto one page. It was a XJ 3-litre L diesel, long wheelbase, portfolio, 69 grand in indigo blue, the same colour that the D-Type ran at Le Mans, if I remember. 20-inch Kasuga wheels. I'll put some pictures on the website. Really great. Gave me back.
Make sure you don't put a picture of the one that I curbed, if you can possibly manage that.
They haven't noticed.
Yeah.
20-inch wheels, hard not to curb.
I don't think I was the only one that curbed one, though, was I?
No, we were in Panameras over the weekend that curbed their wheels, didn't we? Over the weekend. And it parked next to a Panamera. Oh, that's a whole other conversation. Sog, spend an hour in a Panamera and you live with one for a weekend?
I did, yeah.
Outside the tent.
Next to us. And I have, well, you know, I maybe look on them a little bit more warmly, but it still just isn't right. They haven't figured out how to make that back end work with that front. It's the wrong shape.
On the spot, then, as a Porsche file, Panamera or XJL? Because some people say the XJ is a better car than the Panamera, don't they, Richard? You've read that?
Yeah, I've driven both, and I think that I would rather have the XJ. The Panamera is impressive to drive, but god-awful to look at.
Go on. Z?
Much as it pains me to reject the better engineering, I think I'd go with the XJL.
Wow, high praise indeed. We love that car. It was fast enough to get us into trouble in France. That's all I'm saying. A wonderful car. You've been listening to Gareth Jones on Speed. That was Zog.
Goodbye.
That was Richard.
Goodbye.
And the next time we meet will be our 150th episode, rather like that Ferrari that we're driving around this year. And may well coincide with my 50th birthday. God help us.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site or follow us on Twitter, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!